Here's some things you'll need. Rags. This is the stripper. This is what you'll see a lot at Home Depot. I bought 1 quart. You may need more. Acetone. Some assorted brushes. Stripping pads. Scotch-Brite. Buckets. And some knives too. You want to have these kind of putty knives, spatulas, flexible joint knife it's called here. You may want a couple of different ones of these. Steel wool is also maybe a good idea. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I opened up the quart of stripper here. I poured it into the bucket. This is what it looks like. This is a little more liquid-like than some of the other kinds. I don't think I've used it before, but we'll check it out. Alright, so I have here, this is 2 parts of the skirt, and I have the chip brush here. So to start, dip it into the stripper and start spreading it. You want to put it heavy. Don't worry about applying it a heavy coat, and you got to make sure it covers everything, or you're just wasting your time. Make sure it covers everything good. Alright, so I'm just gonna go along in this vein, and here's a word too about separating the parts. It's a lot easier, often, not always, but often, to apply the stripper with the parts separated. Now look how I'm making sure that this is spread and evenly spread on the parts of the table. You want to get even those little corners, because you don't get those little corners now, it'll cause you a lot more trouble later on. Okay, so I'm going to continue in this vein. That's probably enough for that one. I'll move on to the next one. And I guess you're probably starting to get an idea, so I'll stop it right there. Alright, so I've continued stripping the pieces here. I started with that the drop leaf. Here's the main part of the table, which we saw before, and we see it now that it's very scratched up, needs a lot of work. So same thing. Dip your chip brush in the stripper and just apply a nice heavy coat. You may also want to do the edges there. Turn it over a bit. Well, actually there you don't need it. And a little bit there. Might want to just turn it over for a moment and apply the brush there, because that part is more visible. Use your common sense. Alright, and keep an eye on the other parts that you already applied the stripper to. You don't want to wait too long to start actually removing the finish. Just keep an eye. If it looks like it's corroded, the finish is corroding, if the stripper is reacting to it, test it a little bit with your knife. Just run it through. Now look at that. You're seeing that the finish is coming off. Alright, so actually, before we get going on this full scale, we want to start taking care of the things we already applied the stripper to, because the stripper can dry out and then it's difficult to remove. You'll have to apply it again. More work, which, as I've been saying before, we don't want to do. So, as you see, I'm taking a putty knife, joint knife, And oops, just taking the stripper off, which is also taking the finish off. It's stripping the finish, and try to, you know, deposit as much as possible in a container. In this case, a old 7-Eleven coffee cup. Probably a bucket is a little better. I only bought 2 buckets. I should have bought 3, one for doing this, but you get the idea. You know, it's a pretty fairly simple thing. You just don't want to dig too deep into the veneer or the wood and damage it. There it is. It's all coming off. Okay, so that's basically, and here's drop leaf. We've gotten a lot of that stripped off. Now there's still going to be a residue, so what we're going to have to do is wash it. We got to wash the residue off, and that's where we come to the acetone, or you can use lacquer thinner too. Okay, the next step, we took the acetone and I poured it into this bucket. As you can see, it's a clear liquid. Take the scouring pad. Now, some of you may want to use gloves for this. It's probably a good idea. I'm not, but anyway, you can start applying the acetone. This is going to get off the residue. You need to get off the residue. You cannot just apply the stripper and the knife. If you do that, there will be residue. It will stay in the veneer, in the wood, and it's not going to react too well with your finish. You are going to have problems, and you're not going to be happy about it. So as you can see here, we're applying the acetone. This is a wash. Try to get it in all the little grooves and whatnot. Give it a nice scouring. Don't press too hard and damage the veneer. More work later on. Sorry to keep repeating myself in that way, but it is so important. Okay, you want to take a little brush, get it in there, because places where the scouring pad won't go. Just clean the whole damn thing up. Okay. I want to show you guys something that happened when I was scouring this. I was trying to be careful, but still, some of the veneer on this drop leaf came off. As you can see right there, this is something to watch out for. Try being very careful around the edges there, because now I'll need to fit this back in and glue it back in later. So just watch out for that. If you get a big veneer chip like this, keep it. Don't throw it out, because otherwise you'll have to I don't know, get a slice of matching veneer and get it in there or something, or you have to apply filler and do a hell of a touch-up job. So try to keep the pieces, and you know, when everything's dry, you can glue it and put it back together. Very important. So this is the main part of the tabletop. I applied the stripper and I've been testing it, letting it dry a little bit, and we're ready now to start taking everything off. Now, if you remember, I applied a little bit to the sides here as well. When I'm pushing this off, some of that stripper residue will also fall to the sides and help to strip it there. So that's the way to do it. Here we go. And you can see not all of it's coming off. We'll do as best we can. Okay, and then the same thing, we're going to wash it off after this. So now I stripped the tabletop and I'm washing it now. Been applying the acetone with the scouring brush. I also wanted to show you for the places that are more difficult to reach, you can use one of these brushes, dip it in the acetone, and oops, that's a way to apply curved areas or finials or anything like that. It's hard for me to do this holding the cell phone, but get the idea. Like right here, you see it's curved. You want to put the brush, the bristles in there, move them with the acetone, and clean it up. You got to get this thing cleaned up. That's so important. And we'll take a look at it after it's done. Okay, so here we are. Everything's been stripped. Got it all laid out here. So yeah, that took a minute. And some things I want to point out is here in the back of the table we have some cracked, damaged veneer. I'm gonna have to do something about that later. You want to check the veneer. As I mentioned, there was the one that cracked earlier. Where was it? I think it was on the tabletop. I saw some veneer bubbling. Yeah. Let me show you that. Right there. We're gonna have to put some glue and some tape there. So you want to go around and check for all these things. Also, I just poured some fresh acetone in the bucket here, and I'm gonna give everything a once over, make sure everything's clean. I'm gonna use a fresh terry cloth rag to do that, or a couple of rags. Just dip it in the acetone and give everything a once over. Make sure we get that stripper residue off. Okay, so like I said, got some clear acetone, and I'm just giving the tabletop here once over, and you can see there's still some color coming out even after all that work I did. But now you're seeing the beautiful color of the veneer starting to come out too. So we're on our way. And just go through this with all the other pieces. Okay, so there we have it. Just finished washing, giving a final wash to all the pieces. Here's the tabletop. It's the back of the table. The legs. The area where the drawer goes. So I've got them just standing up here against my car, drying a little bit. And so the next step is we gotta do something about the veneer where it's bubbling or cracked. As I mentioned, especially right here. I don't know, I'm gonna have to think of something. Some of it might have to be cut off. And then there's some glue where it's bubbling right there. Yep. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of work right there. Gotta get some glue in there, clamp it down. But on a good day's work, stripped it all in one afternoon, and so we'll continue on this, and I'll let you know what happens, and I'll give some tips along the way. Have a good night.